a great pleasure to be here with you today for our Green Tech panel, as we call it among friends. Tecnologias, verdes, Nuevos, modelos de negocio e instrumentos financieros. I'm here with a super duper team of experts. Avril Benchimol from the JEF, Global Environmental Facility, April Kroll from the Circular Capital Group, Fernando Russo from Miraki Impact Investors, and also our great entrepreneurs, Nicolas Castillo from Ecosea and Manuel Waiters from Ilumexico. I'd like just to start to say a few words. This topic is super important for us. As you know, IDB Lab has been involved in this sphere for a long time now. And I think we were one of the pioneers really to actually have the guts to try to match innovation with green growth. As you also know, like October last year was very important for us. We started a new administration at the bank. And since then, we have been following a new strategic vision called Vision 2025. And green growth, green recovery is a very important pillar of this new strategy for our operations at the bank group. With that, the way this panel is going to work is the following. We are going to have two very short presentations from our brilliant entrepreneurs. And after that, we are going to have a brief discussion with Avril, April, and Fernando about not only what we just listened from the entrepreneurs, but about the environment for investments in this sphere. So without much more to say, I will pass the floor to Nicolas Castillo, the CEO from Ecosea. Nico, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Anita. Hi, everyone. Thank you for having me. My name is Nicolas Castillo. I'm the CEO of Ecosea Farming. We are a Chilean-founded company. I'm going to share just a brief presentation for you to have a visual reference. Just, Anita, if you could let me know if the presentation is visible, please.
Mm-hmm. It is right now.
Okay, great. So thank you for having me. As a company, we are a Chilean-founded company. We came about focusing and developing technology to be able to execute aquaculture in a sustainable and expandable manner towards the future. As the UN projects, by the year 2050, we are going to be close to 10 billion people in the world. That is definitely going to generate a food gap that everybody needs to fill to be able to feed the world in a more sustainable manner. And aquaculture has year by year taking more predominance and importance in filling that gap. But unfortunately, the reality is that current technology and traditional aquaculture produces a lot of problems with the environment: plastic debris, animal hazards, seabed contamination, ecological impact of non-native species, and overcrowding of the coastlines. So in order to be able to provide a new future for aquaculture and be able to fill that gap, that food gap, we are focused and have been focused and developed a submersible cage technology for aquaculture that allows aquaculture to be executed in open ocean conditions, away from the coast, in deeper waters, cleaner waters, with the use of relevant and advanced materials. In order to do so, obviously, technology has to be applied. There are many challenges of going offshore, as it's called, or open ocean aquaculture. And for that, we basically bring the future of sustainable aquaculture to the present. We have been, since the year 2007, developing this submersible cage technology that utilizes advanced materials, which has allowed us to prove the efficiency of the technology to increase the usable waters and reduce the environmental impact. Over time, we have proven with our customers the reduction of the footprint, the CO2 footprint that our technology provides by making the feed more efficient, the less use of chemicals, less use of fossil fuels, and less production of biofouling. And on average, we have been able to measure about 155 kilograms of CO2 emissions reduction per ton of fish that our technology has been able to produce. All of this with zero escapes, no marine debris, no ghost nets, no marine life hazard, and reduction of the mortality of the fish being produced in our cages for aquaculture production. And by using our technology, if all the production of the world was using our technology, we would be able to reduce about 4.7 million tons of CO2 emissions per year, and projecting that to 2050, by the year, we would be able to reduce 11 million tons per year of CO2 emissions if our technology was used for that. In addition to that, and throughout over more than 12 years, we have been able to prove also the recyclability of our systems, which means our systems operate for 10 plus years without the production of nylon or plastic debris. And at the end, we are able to recycle 95%, over 95% of the overall materials, where one of the main components is copper alloy mesh, which is a metal alloy that at the end of the life also has financial value that is retrieved and being brought into the circular economy that we can utilize to produce more systems, to produce more fish into the future without producing any debris and contamination. Overall, as a company, we have worked very, very hard to bring our technology to the world, not just for the Chilean aquaculture market. And we have been blessed and we have been able to work and continue to work with world-class partners such as Mitsubishi Shindo, which is the manufacturer of our copper alloy mesh, J. Mitsui Lease for lease services for our clients, IDB for the financial support for the business expansion, Nito Sein, which is a commercial partner in our operations in Japan, and other companies such as AX Group, Novatex, Cetecna, and Innovex, which are actually providers of components that complement and complete our systems to be able to provide a more durable and expandable solution towards the future. Where we are now as a company and as an objective for us is to be able to be the reference for offshore or oceanic aquaculture in the world, which is a market that is just opening. It is not a market that has been exploited in the past, but is currently with many projects of R&D being executed. Our main difference is, and our benefit is that we have already been through that process almost 10 years ago. And we now have a proven technology that can be utilized to bring oceanic aquaculture to a reality at a very competitive, with a very competitive price, so lower investment, and the guarantee which we can provide for 10 years of continuous operation. So for that, we are actually in the process of looking for investors to continue to provide this sustainable aquaculture solution for a better world. And as I said, we are not just in Chile. We have 2 offices in Chile. We are also present in China. We are in Japan. And through a commercial agent, we're also working in Australia and New Zealand to expand our presence and provide this solution to the world. So overall, our invitation, and thank you all for your time and your interest, it's to build a sustainable future together, and hopefully we can add a little grain of salt to what it's needed for the future of agriculture and a sustainable future for our oceans in the world. Thanks so
Thank you,
much.
Nico. Thank you so much. Yeah, from Chile to the world, right? Technology
Exactly.
and climate walking hand in hand. Uh, Manuel, tell us about Ilumexico, my friend. So much has happened to you guys. Please show my friends what your company is all about.
Gladly, and thank you so much, Anita, and everyone for the invitation. Can you see my correct screen?
Yes, we can.
Yes.
Great. So, in the world, close to 1 billion people don't have electricity, and this is a worldwide development priority. Who are these communities? These are families like the Martinez family that today are paying for the most inefficient and the most expensive lighting sources in the world. They are paying for candles, they are paying for diesel, and when they have a little bit more income, they are paying for a gasoline generator. We take electricity for granted in our modern world, but imagine life without it. The grid will not reach the Martinez family because they are disconnected for the world, and they will not be able to connect appliances, internet, and a lot of very important aspects for today's modern world and development. As we can see, as we can imagine, energy changes lives. You can have Don Gregorio, who is now who's currently studying with a candle for his like adult education. You can have fishermen that need to sell their catch on the same day because they don't have the capacity to be able to refrigerate it or freeze it. And then you have people who can't enable a business, who can't study at night because they don't have electricity. So Ilumexico was founded with the objective for every family to have power, not only in electricity, but also the power to change their daily conditions through energy. We are using today, we are transforming spaces through solar home systems for full-scale energy access. We believe families have enough energy to fulfill their needs and aspirations. And also we know that families grow these needs and aspirations. So we are creating a modular technology that can grow with families as their needs and aspirations evolve. It is a simple system that can solve a simple problem. And let me show you how this looks like. Now, this is the Martinez family months after they have electricity. Now they have the capacity to be together as a family at night. Now the daughter can study. And they are doing this with clean energy instead of using fossil fuels, which is also very positive for the environment. In the last 10 years, Ilumexico has created a business model that takes into account the key capabilities to be able to assist and provide energy to the most remote locations in the Americas. We're doing this through solid technology, through solar home systems that are distributed and serviced through a last mile distribution network that employs local youth and women, and through a pay-as-you-go solution where people can pay the exact amount of cash that they want and get those days of energy. And we're investing in technology and hardware to be able to remotely monitor these solutions and allow as flexible payments as can be. Our dream and what we're looking for is to create a next-gen utility. In the last 3 years, we have been able to double our installed capacity. Today, we have close to 24,000 homes that are receiving electricity through our system in 3 countries. And we have great plans together with us and the ADB to be able to reach much more families and become this utility 2.0 in the Americas. We are convinced that in the next 10 years, there's a huge potential for our growth. Today, there's 22 million people in the Americas without electricity. Governments and policymakers have taken a look at this system and created the incentives for this to happen. But we also see that as countries evolve and as technology evolves, the electrical grids will become unsustainable because they rely on subsidies and are very vulnerable to climate change and different disasters, being a technology that was created many years ago. So this increases the potential of off-grid solar home systems. We are one of the only companies in the sector to have EBITDA positive in the last 5 years, and we've managed to grow our customers, our revenue, and our team to become this vision that we have about becoming this next generation utility. And we're focusing on having the tech and the offline data management tools to assist any country in the last 10% of electrification that needs to happen. We're planning to serve close to 5 million people by 2030. We're growing in Mexico. We have already have presence in other countries, and we're investing in tech and systems to address a very interesting opportunity that not only has an economic impact, but also has social and environmental impact. And to close, we believe nobody should live without power. Take Faustina and Juan. Faustina, we were asking her about the impact of energy in her life. And instead of saying that her children could study, that they now had more time to be together, that they have more time to be productive, the thing that she told us was that for the first time in 40 years, she could see Juan into his eyes at night. So these kind of stories is what we're looking for. We want to transform lives, transform spaces, and do it through a sustainable business model. Thank you.
Awesome, Manu. Thank you so much. Isn't that beautiful? I love that story. And one thing that is very interesting about Ilumexico, they do serve a large population of indigenous peoples that live in remote areas of Mexico. So I think this is very important to highlight. I don't see that very often when we talk to energy companies at the IDB. So congratulations for that as well, Manu. So I'd like to now shift gears a little bit towards our investors. Uh, and I'd like to start with Avril. So you just saw like Nicolas and Manuel, right? And you are like leading the blended finance initiatives at the Global Environmental Facility, the GEF, that is so close to us. We co-invest together. So first, I'd like to know a little bit about what you think about those technologies we just presented. Do you see any similarities with early stage businesses in other parts of the globe? And also, what are the new financial instruments you guys are thinking about right now, are designing right now, are trying to push towards deployment so we can get ready at the IDB for what comes next?
Thank you, Anita. I would rather say that we need to get ready at the investor side to see these projects that you bring to us. So thank you very much for having me today in this panel, and congratulations, Nicolas and Manuel, for these very interesting initiatives. So just a couple of sentences on the GEF, because that shapes a little bit what our investment appetite is all about. And maybe not everyone in the audience knows about us. The Global Environment Facility is the first environmental fund created globally at the outset of the Rio Summit in 1992. And we are an environmental fund. That means that we do climate change, but we also do all other aspects of the environment that are at this time in serious peril. That means that we do a lot of work in climate change mitigation and adaptation, but also biodiversity, land degradation, chemicals and waste, and international waters. Since I just mentioned these themes, the aquaculture is appealing for us because of all of the very serious strains that this type of, or on the one hand, exhaustion of fisheries through current methods is leading us to depleting oceans. On the other hand, the methodologies and technologies that are in aquaculture are, as Nicolas was explaining, harmful. So any time or any project that seeks to bring an innovation and technological innovation, financial innovation that presents a difference between a baseline of how we do business today and how harmful that is for the environment, and how through that investment the environment is going to gain in terms of CO2 or in terms of sometimes plastic that is avoided in the oceans, or any types of chemicals and waste that will not be poured into our waters, we are interested as an investor. The same goes for Ilumexico, in which you would have all of this access for renewable energy without avoiding all of the CO2 that would be generated through fossil fuel, more traditional methods. Let's put it this way. The interesting, or what I would say, and I wanted to share this with you and the rest of the audience, the projects we receive them through open call for proposals in a worldwide manner. And what we can say, and it's very good that we can say these two conclusions, is that first of all, there is appetite from private sector investors to invest in these areas. And it's not only climate change on the what we have happen to do now in project finance, but these more innovative projects. There is appetite, and we see that because we have a portfolio of in the last 4 years, $140 million, but we have received 4 times the demand for this type of investments. The second highlight that I want to make is that there is this appetite as long as there is de-risking and as long as there is an anchor investor or patient capital that would help innovators and entrepreneurs like Nicolas and Manuel to pursue what they need to pursue in an amount of years or during a tenor that is not totally commercially driven. And in that sense, patient capital, I would say that right now, 2/3 of the type of instrument that is required from us is equity or debt like equity. And on the other hand, on the de-risking, what we are seeing is that as an investor donor with a very clear interest in benefits for the environment, as long as we can improve the return of other layers of investors, the money can flow in. And that results usually in co-financing. So for every dollar that the Jeff is putting here into play, in average in our portfolio in the last 8 years, through all our environmental investments, we are having $18 of additional investment. And that is a very big ratio. And that is when we talk about mobilizing, I don't want to say scale because we need billions and trillions and we're still far from that, but for sure in the millions. So what I have to say is that what we're seeing is there is this ingenuity, this creation, these entrepreneurs and great initiatives that come to us. We also see that there is interest from other investors in investing with us, but that there needs the type of capital that we can provide, which is the equity, the junior layers of types of loans or guarantees, but also, and I want to bring that as the type of innovation, is we see more and more platforms or capital markets type of instruments that can bring in the big money into these types of investments. But of course, with a lot of de-risking and a lot of first loss from donors and investors like us. And I would just want to mention 2 interesting structures. The first is that the IDB Lab and other partner agencies with who we work usually invest in funds and in fund managers, but these have been traditionally been close-ended funds. So there's a closed universe of funding that is available, and once we run out of that funding, hopefully there will be fund number 2 and fund number 3. But what we're seeing more and more is that there is the initiative to list those funds in the stock exchanges so that they can be open-ended and investors can participate, invest, and leave the fund during an open-ended cycle. And that is very important for the long term of the investment. So probably Nicolas and Manuel would need long-term visibility of how much they can count on over the years and not only 2, 3, 5 years at the beginning. And on the other hand, it helps because it proves, since it's listed in the capital markets, a lot of the information that these projects generate will then be shared with investors in the markets. The second type of instrument that we're seeing are bonds. This is not a new instrument, but the use of proceeds can be quite new when we talk about investing in natural capital or conservation of species or other types of environmental uses that are not purely climate driven. In the case of Manuel, for example, I would dream that in a decade from now, you can securitize a portfolio in the capital markets and get a lot of money for funding your growth beyond the 5 million consumers and clients. So these are the types of things that we're seeing. They're feasible, they require de-risking, but appetite is there. There is a wake up. I think there's been a wake up call in the last 5 years, more specifically after COVID. There's a lot of I would say, momentum for this. And we just need to harness and count with us, like donors like us, to de-risk investments. And that's where I would leave it.
Thank you so much, Avril. Uh, and this is a great segue for my question to Fernando. Fernando, you are a private international investor, right, in this green spectrum of things, of technologies. And we co-invest already together, the Jeff, IDB Lab, yourselves, in a fund called Eco Enterprises. So do you agree with what Abril just said? You think like if there are more, donors such as the Jeff or the GCF or multilaterals coming with these de-risking instruments, do you agree that we'll get more and more private investors such as yourself in this market? And also, can you tell us a little bit about your investment criteria? I know you invest in funds, but I confess I don't know if you invest directly in companies, and if you do, is there a difference between the two investment criteria?
No, sure. Yeah, I totally agree with Avril. Like every time I have an institutional investor like the Jeff in a fund already, it makes my life much easier when I have to approve the investment in the investment committee. So I manage a family office, it's a private fund. Our thesis is to invest in environmental impact, but we do a lot through regenerative agriculture. So for us, if we can change the food systems, we can curve down deforestation and regenerate what was damaged of biodiversity. So we have kind of a broad portfolio across a lot of different SDGs. We do fund of funds, but the thing that we end up doing direct investments in, it's this regenerative food systems thing. And one thing I'm doing a lot in our days is like investing in farm projects. So we have our own farm, 1,200 hectares, integrating cattle to agroforestry systems in Brazil. We are also invested in this company that called Symbiosis, where they created kind of a timber agroforestry farm with native species. And we recently launched our own early stage fund to invest in regenerative agriculture technology. So everything that can take us from permaculture, which is small scale regenerative agriculture, to kind of large scale systems, and especially understanding what's happening in terms of biodiversity under the ground and carbon and what's happening in the soil. So this is the way we do it. We avoid a little bit direct investments because we feel I'd rather invest in a fund like Eco Enterprises, where they have very good expertises in investing in a region that I'm interested on. So like my family comes from Brazil, I'm based in the Netherlands. I'm sure Eco Enterprise is much more competent on doing deals in Colombia, in Costa Rica, Ecuador, in countries that we want to be investing in, but it's much better to invest through them. And then we can invest together with large institutional investors, and often what we do, we co-invest with these funds as well. So this is like how I liked to operate and work in general.
Oh, this is awesome. This is good to know. As I said, that I didn't know anything about direct investments from your end, so some homework I did right. So very, very, very good, Fernando. Now, April, you are a different animal, so to speak, because you guys are a group of investors specialized in circular economy investments worldwide, right? But now you guys are starting to see opportunities in our region. Can you tell us more about it, and what are your plans for investments in Latin America and the Caribbean?
Yes, well, thank you again for the opportunity to be here. So I represent Circulo Capital, which is an investment firm that's focused specifically on circular economy and preventing plastic pollution in the environment. And we are working, similar to some of the others, to demonstrate the investability of this space. So each of the investments that we are making currently in South and Southeast Asia, which is where we have started, we're measuring not only the competitive returns that we are receiving, but also demonstrating the environmental benefits and metrics around preventing plastic pollution, as well as many others. We established our first fund, which is the Circulate Capital Ocean Fund, in partnership with leading companies. So we're unique in that we have PepsiCo, Dow, P&G, Unilever, Chanel, Danone, Coca-Cola, and CP Chem as all of funders. There are LPs, and we started in South and Southeast Asia looking at waste management and recycling opportunities, and we've invested in 7 companies there. And we're, again, unique that our LPs not only provide the financial resources, but we also leverage their technical supply chain business knowledge to help support the investments. And so while we started there, in parallel over the past 2 years, we've also worked to start to develop a Latin America and Caribbean strategy. And I'm proud to say that earlier this week, I hope many of you read that we announced a partnership with IDB Lab to expand our investment and business acceleration efforts in the region. So we'll be looking at how we can invest in more early stage startups and small to medium-sized enterprises that are focused on the circular economy efforts, and look at how we can then ultimately catalyze additional investment to get to the billions of dollars that Avril was speaking of how we really start to tackle some of the challenges in this space. We look at different types of solutions really across the value chain, ranging from upfront in terms of materials and design and looking at innovation in that space, as well as waste management infrastructure, looking at collection, sorting, processing, and recycling of materials. We've learned a lot in Asia that we think will apply here. There are differences and similarities that within the region. What we have found that is within Latin America and the Caribbean, the countries that we've looked at really have stronger recycling fundamentals overall to begin with. So we're starting from a good point. And then we've also seen some other parallels in terms of many of the entrepreneurs are facing leadership gaps, or they need technical assistance or mentorship, which we have built in to the work that we've done to date. And they need those flexible financing mechanisms and equity vehicles that we heard about earlier. What we found is, as we had conversations, starting in South and Southeast Asia, was they just haven't had access to the funding that they need to start to grow and scale these companies. There are a lot of great ideas and work underway. I mean, great examples like we just heard from Nicolas and Manuel, I think earlier, just really great resources and knowledge that we can share with others. And so right now we are looking at, again, some fundamentals around recycling. I would say about 80% of the opportunities that we've looked at to date really fall into that category, as well as how do we increase innovation in this space. About 20%, I would say, in that category. We want to see how we grow that. So we are coming up with transformational ideas that help with the circular economy space.
Oh, this is awesome. Nicolas, you heard that, right?
100%. I'll be sending April an email.
Maybe we have a match already here in this panel. So guys, I see the time is approaching, but I'd like to close with one question for the three of you. And Nico, Manuel, if you want to jump in as well, please do. So if we were to have this panel again in 10 years' time, what do you think we'll be discussing about? Fernando.
For me, what's really exciting that's happening right now, as we are able to really monitor what's happening in terms of biodiversity, is that we start monetizing ecosystem services beyond carbon credits. So I really want to see farmers getting paid for biodiversity as an ecosystem service, technologies that work with nature to create biodiversity. Some of the examples we saw today too. So like, how can we allow these entrepreneurs to monetize ecosystem services. And I think the next breakthrough also when we talk about food systems is that we are able to measure nutrition of a same fruit that we harvest from a regenerative system, a greenhouse, aquaponic system, and a monoculture. And we see there's a huge gap, and we can start paying for the farmers also for the nutrition they generate on this product. So I think there's a lot of things, exciting things about data that we're going to see in the next 10 years. That's going to change the way we finance projects and the way we look at the impact return of things. That's for me what's going to be in 10 years.
These are actually the nutrition is, wow, I never thought about that. That's that is the future, really. Abril, so in 10 years time,
So in 10 years, I'm in an environmental organization, and we see that I think we all have now the conscience of climate change is happening. We also need to act on nature loss. So I fully agree with Fernando. In that amount of time, I hope that projects will be focusing more on avoiding nature loss and finding a way to not only monetizing these ecosystem services, but also monitoring risk. What's the risk that a given company is having by doing the business they're doing in a certain way? Does that lead to depletion of a certain natural aspect? And if so, what are we going to do? How can we shift that pattern? So I think we're going to look at, with the TNFD, I don't know, the Task Force for Nature-Related Financial Disclosures being launched earlier this year. I think we're going to assist at a switch on also the conversation and monetizing nature, which has been totally out of our economic system for as long as we have an economic system. So I hope to be talking about that, truly.
Awesome. April, what's your take?
Yeah, I think this conversation is a great example of, in many cases, we've often worked in silos and not across disciplines or sectors, and you really see good movement and momentum now about bringing a lot of these different topics and different activities together, which will draw stronger collaboration and greater solutions to the table. So I'm optimistic that will help us move from some of the incremental type work that's happening in some of these spaces to really the transformational ideas and the innovation that's needed to really tackle some of these huge environmental challenges.
Awesome. Last but not least, without you, we wouldn't be here. The entrepreneurs, like, what do you think we will be discussing in 10 years' time if we were to have this panel?
How did Ecosea manage after going public, and how they become more and more mainstream? No, but I think solutions like Nico and ourselves, hopefully in 10 years' time, will become the norm and not the exception. And therefore, we will be seeing, like Avril said, and I echo a lot of what said, a new ecosystem and a new kind of viewing nature and markets and entrepreneurship.
Yeah, I agree with Manuel. Hopefully, in 10 years' time, the discussion is not going to be if the environment is something that is interesting for investment. It's going to be how we continue to do it, and looking for ways to actually make it grow exponentially in a sustainable and safe manner, which is something that you guys mentioned before, that so far it hasn't been a key player in the financial environment in our history. So hopefully in 10 years, it's going to be a stone that is already there, and now it has to grow into something bigger.
Awesome. Well, guys, with that, we are going to close this panel. It has been wonderful to talk to you. Wonderful group of people that come from different backgrounds with different perspectives. But as April said, everything connects very well together. So thank you so much for participating. Thanks to you that have been watching us here. And stay tuned because now we have the closing panel of IDB Lab Forum. Thank you guys. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.
You know?